Hey everyone, happy WEF week.
1, 2, 3 and to the 4. Klaus, Schwab and Bill Gates is at the door. Ready to put a patent on air and glass, cause we about to greatly set your ass.
Just incredible!
I'm sure a lot of you who watch my channel have been following the goings-on over in Davos right now, where all of the absolutely evil, corrupt leaders and politicians and corporate CEOs from around the world are having their annual meeting to discuss how to make us eat bugs, how to make us own nothing and be happy by the year 2030, and of course, how predictably they are in lockstep with the other big global authoritarian organization called the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is a giant pseudo-scientific arm of the United Nations, which is drafts policies and reports for governments around the world, and of course scares people, and media publishes all their stuff as if it was actual fact, and that's how we get into this whole climate tyranny, which is now happening. So it's no surprise that WEF and the UN are together in on this. I said, along with many other people, about 3 years ago when the whole COVID mandates showed up and all these restrictions started coming down, a lot of us said, now if you go way back in my videos, you could probably find the one I said it. I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until they use climate against us. And it is coming, and it is coming fast and hard. We're going to have carbon credits and maybe carbon passports, and everything can be severely restricted and controlled in the name of climate change. And this was, I've been fighting against this whole greenwashing, this whole climate thing for at least 15 years, maybe plus now, because I saw it coming a long time ago, and a lot of other people did too, but I think it's becoming much more mainstream knowledge now that this is going to be used against the population everywhere. And look at what's happening right now in Germany with tens of thousands of farmers taking over the streets for the last few weeks with their tractors. Now truckers are joining their protests too. It's like Freedom Convoy vibes happening all over again. It's freaking awesome. And these farmers have now inspired other farmers and truckers in other countries like Austria and France, and the protests are now spiraling everywhere, which is amazing. And the main reason behind these protests is because of big government pushing climate policies, which are raising fuel taxes and other restrictions and basically threatening livelihoods and putting farmers out of business. So government is already going way too far, and the people are rising up, and it is amazing to see. Then you got these little fake protesters on the streets in cities everywhere every once in a while, protesting against climate, or protesting against the lack of action against climate change. And of course, some of them are in Davos right now. Now, who's funding them? Follow the money. I bet you anything they're planted there. These cronies, these political leaders and the WEF and the UN, they want these idiots out in the streets doing their climate protests because it's giving these leaders, and it's giving the WEF and the United Nations, giving them license to actually to do what they're doing. These people want you to protest. It's so funny, the people in the streets have no idea they're helping. They're helping these evil, corrupt people. They're not protesting against them, they're helping them.
Joining me now is Ned Ryan, American CEO. Ned, great to see you tonight. It seems that the goal of this crowd is to kind of create the same panic about climate change that they successfully created around COVID. Do I have this wrong?
No, you have it correct. I mean, first of all, we have to accept the World Economic Forum is a fanatical political organization that uses fear and manipulation like COVID hysteria, like the hoax of global warming, to really facilitate people thinking that somehow they're the saviors, but really all you're doing is helping them accomplish their goal, which really is a global public-private fascist movement and fusion of big government, big tech, big money to create a technocratic ruling elite, which conveniently is them. And really, Laura, if you want to look at it a different way, too, with the World Economic Forum, they want to create feudalism 2.0, in which we are serfs and they are the lords ruling over us. You'll have nothing and be happy is one of the things that comes out of Davos. That's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for feudalism in which we are serfs, and we should be happy that they are ruling over us.
I just want to point out, though, in case you guys didn't see this, this is pretty amazing footage. I got 2 clips you have to see, please. But before I show them to you, do me a favor, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button below. And if you really like to push buttons, you can also click that little like button. And if you do that, it'll change color. It's awesome, and it also helps the YouTube algorithm share this video with other people. Other than people like all the elites and Bill Gates, who are advocating for even more carbon taxes and even more control over us. Okay, then you got the good people. Just because someone signed up to be a speaker or a member at WEF annual meetings in Davos doesn't mean that they're automatically a bad person. It doesn't mean that they're an evil puppet. They're all in this secret club and they're sitting around a table talking about how to control our lives. It's not like that at all. A lot of those people there, yes, are like that, but it doesn't mean that the whole thing is like that and that every attendee is an evil schmuck. Case in point, the president of Argentina gave this explosive speech, basically calling out the WEF and all its policies.
Today I am present to inform you that the Western world is facing a significant threat. It is in danger because those who are supposed to defend the values of the Western world are co-opted by a worldview that inevitably leads to socialism and consequently to poverty and economic deprivation. Unfortunately, in recent decades, motivated by some well-intentioned desires to help others, and others by the desire to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We are here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world, but rather they are their cause. Trust me, there is no one better than us Argentines to provide testimony on these two issues. When we embraced freedom in 1860, in 35 years we became the world's first dominant power. 35 years we became the first world power. While when we embraced collectivism, over the past 100 years, we saw how our citizens began to systematically impoverish themselves until they fell to the 140th position in the world. 40 in the world. But before we can have this discussion, it would be important for us to first look at the data that supports why free market capitalism is not only a possible system to end world poverty, but also the only morally desirable system to achieve it. The empirical evidence is unquestionable. Therefore, as there is no doubt that free market capitalism is superior in productive terms, the left's doxa has attacked capitalism for its moral issues, for being, according to them, as its detractors say, unjust. They claim capitalism is bad because it's individualistic and collectivism is good because it's altruistic towards others. And thus they strive for social justice. But this concept that has become trendy in the developed world recently, in my country, it has been a constant in political discourse for over 80 years. The issue is that social justice is unfair and doesn't contribute to general well-being. On the contrary, it's an inherently unfair idea because it's violent. It's unfair because the state is financed through taxes, and taxes are collected coercively. Or can any of us confidently say that they pay taxes of their own free will? Today's world is freer, richer, more peaceful, and more prosperous than ever before. This is true for everyone, but particularly for those countries that are free, where they respect economic freedom and individual property rights. Because free countries are 12 times richer than repressed ones. Saying goes that in countries with freedom, people live better than 90% of population in repressed countries. It has 25 times fewer poor people in the standard format and 50 times fewer in the extreme format. And if that weren't enough, citizens of free countries live 25% longer than citizens of repressed countries. Now, in order to understand what we come to defend, it is important to define what we mean when we talk about libertarianism. To define it, I take up the words of the greatest proponent of the ideas of freedom in Argentina, Professor Alberto Venegas Lynch, who says that libertarianism is the unrestricted respect for the life project of others, based on the principle of non-aggression, and in defense of the right to life, liberty, and property, whose fundamental institutions are private property, free markets without state intervention, free competition, division of labor, and social cooperation.
And check this out from Kevin Roberts. He's president of the Heritage Foundation. He basically told these cronies to stick it where the sun don't shine.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would, describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy. It's equally,
standing up for it.
It's equally laughable to use the word dictatorship at Davos and aim that at President Trump. In fact, I think that's absurd. But I'm going to step aside from that constructive criticism and instead answer your question.
Yep.
And I'm going to be substantive here. President Trump, if he's the next president, for that matter, I think whoever the next conservative president is going to take on the power of the elites, which I've mentioned earlier. But the thing that I want to drive home here, the very reason that I'm here at Davos, is to explain to many people in this room and who are watching, with all due respect, nothing personal, but that you're part of the problem. Political elites tell the average people on 3 or 4 or 5 issues that the reality is X, when in fact reality is Y. Take immigration. Elites tell us that open borders and even illegal immigration are okay. The average person tells us in the United States that both rob them of the American way of life. They're right. I guess the favorite at the World Economic Forum is climate change. Elites tell us that we have this existential crisis with so-called climate change, so much so that climate alarmism is probably the greatest cause for mental health crisis in the world. The solutions, the average person know, based on climate change are far worse and more harmful and cost more human lives, especially in Europe during the time that you need heating, than do the problem and the problems themselves.
Keep on rocking the free world, everyone.